In the Jewish calendar, this week is pretty much the harshest week of the year in terms of the way we relate and the way we behave in halacha. So this week is called Shavua Shechal Bo Tisha B'Av. It's the week that Tisha B'Av falls out on. So even Sfaradim, who do have weddings at the beginning of the 3 weeks, don't have weddings now, and nobody's eating meat and drinking wine, and the sense of simcha, the sense of happiness, is down. And that's because as we get closer and closer to Tisha B'Av, we get closer and closer to this experience of churban, of destruction. In fact, somebody asked me the other day, the Nebuch, the father passed away, a young guy, and the son is sitting Shiva. So his question was, what do I do on Shiva on Tisha B'Av? Right? And the answer is, everyone's sitting Shiva on Tisha B'Av. So you're actually allowed to go to shul on Tisha B'Av. It's part of Shiva. So it's really a time of in a sense, we increase what appears to be. All the dark aspects are much more expressed at this period of time. Then today is called the 7th of Av. Now the 7th of Av, the Gemara says, is when everything was intensified. Because on the 7th of Av, the Gemara in Tainis tells us that the enemy was able to break into the Beis HaMikdash. So the actual destruction took place on the 9th of Av, technically the 9th into the 10th, but Tisha B'Av is the day of destruction, but they broke into the Beis HaMikdash on the 7th day of Av. So as we enter the 7th day of Av, it's now, in a sense, like, we don't like to have a time of negativity. We much prefer Yom Tov, which is festivities and exciting times and simcha. And then there's these times when it's the opposite of simcha. So we know we have them in life. We have those times. But we don't really want to set a day on the calendar where we have all this harshness and negativity. But there it is, right in front of us. It's the week of Tisha B'Av. And the Shabbos before is called Shabbat Chazon. Shabbat Chazon is the Shabbos of the 9 days. Now, what do you read on Shabbat Chazon? You read, Chazon is a vision. Chazon doesn't necessarily mean something negative, but Chazon Yeshayahu, which is what we read, is very harsh. It's the vision of Yeshayahu who was essentially warning the Jewish people about the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. And he goes through, like, every part of it is so harsh. Like, he says, everything's bad in you. I see blemish all over. I don't see any good in you. And what's going to be, right? And the whole Chazon Yeshayahu is this prophecy of destruction. And so we have Gimel de Puranusa, the 3 readings of the 3 weeks, culminating in Chazon Yeshayahu, are really negative readings of the prophets, describing to us what's going to happen and what destruction looks like. Afterwards, we need another 7 weeks. This coming Shabbos is going to be Shabbos Nachamu, which is the beginning of comfort and consolation. We have 7 of them, because you need a lot more comfort than you do destruction. But why are we being told about this destruction? Because it didn't end. So we Jews keep on commemorating the destruction. We, stayed in this home in Yerushalayim, and it was actually quite beautiful, but it's in Yerushalayim, so right next to the front door, they had this, like, beginning it looked like some kind of they framed, basically, they put a beautiful frame, what looked like a picture, and then when you look at it, you see what it is. It's a frame, it's made too beautiful, but it's a frame of a part of the wall which was left untouched. You get it? They're framing the Im Yishkachech Yerushalayim. So you're supposed to leave a part of your wall undone, so that we know that we're never complete. You can build a home, you're never complete. Do you know that till today, there's many in Yerushalayim who, when you make an event and a wedding, will not make full music. Have like a drummer and a singer or something like that, but will not make proper full music because in Yerushalayim, you know, we're worried about the Churban still. Every time we make we make a wedding. What do we do at a wedding? The base of the wedding is the breaking of a cup, which is not really a happy thing, even though everyone says Mazel Tov. What it is commemorating the destruction. It's reminding us that we're never complete and we're never whole, and we're not ready for it, which is why we don't eat meat and drink wine now. In fact, in the Gemara it says that initially they wanted to make, you shouldn't eat meat and drink wine ever. And there shouldn't be music ever. They just saw it was too much. The decree was too much to handle. But there's so much that we do today, which is in commemoration of Yerushalayim and the destruction of Yerushalayim. So here we are, entering this period of time, whereby the destruction is at a peak. And the question is, what are we supposed to do about it? I always wonder, people ask, you know, Tisha B'Av is coming, so what are we going to do on Tisha B'Av? And the question basically is, what film can we show? Some Holocaust film. We don't have films of the Churban. It's too far away. They didn't have, any way to depict it with film then. But we certainly have films now. So what film can we show of destruction? And like, we want to sit there and watch a Holocaust film to be able to feel the tragedy of the people of Israel. So what's it about? What's the avodah? What's the work for us at this time? Is it to feel destruction? Something tells me that we don't need, I shouldn't say we don't need, we do sometimes need to feel the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. But the sense of destruction and the sense of tragedy, we got a lot of that anyway. Is that what we need really to increase a sense of mourning? What if you have already mourning in your life? So if you don't have mourning, okay, good, then you need it. But if you have it, many people unfortunately suffer. Many people struggle. What does it mean? Now we have a holiday for struggle. So let's all think about the struggle. Let's all think about Churban. And most importantly, how do we bring about Geula? How do we bring about redemption? So we talk about Ani Maamin, about bringing about Mashiach, and the coming of the Geula, the redemption. What can we do now to bring about redemption? You ready? Hashem does the work, not us. So what are we supposed to do? In fact, Yeshayahu ends off in the Haftarah, and he says, Tzion b'mishpat tipadeh v'shaveh b'tzdakah, which appears to be something Hashem is going to do. One day, Hashem is going to redeem Zion with judgment, and its captives, that's us, as a tzedakah, he's going to do tzedakah and give us charity to release us from prison. But in this class, we usually like to talk about what we can do about it, and like to empower us to become part of this process, and what can we do to bring about redemption? What are we supposed to do to bring Geula into our lives? The Berditchev Rebbe, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev, who was, a Jew lover, a holy Jew lover, he had another way of looking at this. He always had another perspective on everything. And this was revealed by Rabbi Hillel Parachim, who was a great chassid. He said as follows: on Shabbat Chazon, every Jew has a vision every single year. So just like Yeshayahu had a vision, Chazon Yeshayahu, the reason we keep on reading it now is not the vision of Yeshayahu many, many moons ago, but rather the vision that you and I have now. What's the vision? The vision is every Jew gets shown the third temple, the third Beit HaMikdash. And you have a vision and you see the third Beit HaMikdash. And the metaphor, the analogy that he says as follows. He's like, there was a king who had a prince, an only son. And he loved this prince very much. So he bought him, he made him the most glorious, unbelievable, tailor-made garment for him. It was the most expensive garment anyone could ever imagine. It was one that only a king could afford. And the king made this garment for his son, the prince. But the son didn't appreciate fully the specialness of this garment. So after some time, he ruined the garment. But he tore it up and he destroyed it. And it was over. So the father had pity. And he said to his son, you know what? I'll make you a second one. And he made him another garment to replace the first one. And the son took this garment and he loved it and he wore it. And he ruined it too. He destroyed the garment because he didn't fully appreciate the garment. So the king looked at the son and he said, my dear, lovely, beloved son, I love you so much, I'm going to make you another one. I'm going to make you a third garment. And the son says, thank you so much, Abba, thank you for being ready to forgive. And I appreciate it. The father takes this beautiful, most gorgeous garment ever, the one that's better than all the others. And he shows it to the son, and the son's so thankful about it. And he wants to take it, and the father says, nope, sorry. I'm going to show it to you. When you prove to me that this one you're going to keep, then you can have it. And so we had a first Beis Hamikdash, a first temple, and we messed it up. And we had a second one, and we messed it up. So Hashem said, I'll give you a third one, and it's ready and made and done. And every Shabbat Chazon, there's a vision, which is that right before the destruction, we can see the new Beis Hamikdash. And every one of us gets to see it and envision it, which can't have it. You have to be worthy of having it. So it's a great metaphor, great story. But did you see the Beis Hamikdash this last Shabbat Chazon? You didn't see it. Like, he's telling you had the vision, right? The vision was there. But you say, I had the vision, but I didn't see it. So what does it help to have a vision if you and I don't have access to it? If you're telling me every child gets to see it, that's wonderful. That's really, 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 really special. I appreciate it. But if I can't see it, what are you showing me a vision that I can't see for? What is the point and the benefit of showing me a vision that I can't see? Unless somehow you do see it. And maybe you don't get what you're seeing. Maybe sometimes in life, things are happening to us. And there's a vision in front of our eyes, and we get to see the vision, but we didn't get to appreciate what we see. So he's telling us we saw it. How about let's try together to unpack the vision. Let's try to unpack the vision of the Beis Hamikdash. Because if we can appreciate and we can see the vision of the Beis Hamikdash in the Chazon, we have the key to redemption. You see, it is forbidden to destroy anything. You're not allowed to destroy a shul. The halakha is, you're not allowed ever to destroy a shul. A shul, a Beit Knesset. You can't just decide to tear it down. Not allowed. There's one exception to the rule. And the exception is, if your intention is to build a better structure, so then you're not destroying it, you're just building a better one, and this is the process of how you build a better structure. How can Hashem destroy the Beis Hamikdash? You're not allowed to destroy a Beis Hamikdash, any shul, let alone the holiest shul in the world. How could Hashem destroy it? The answer is, He wasn't destroying it. He's building a better one. And every time you feel destruction in your life, and you feel a chazon, a vision of negativity, understand that deep down there's a vision of something phenomenal. There's a building that's going on. There's something special going on in your life. And what we need to do is just get the tools of how to unpack what we have and what we see. When the Jews entered Eretz Yisrael, when they entered the land of Israel, they were faced with a huge challenge. The challenge was, there were 31 kings. And the 31 kings were super powerful, and the Jews didn't have the power against them. They didn't feel like they had the strength to fight. In other words, it was a scary nation. In fact, before they entered the land, it says that Moshe himself was afraid of the giant of Og. Now remember what happened when the spies went in? The spies went into the land, they came back, and they were able to convince the entire Jewish people, everyone, that we can't get in. And guess what we got as a result? Tisha B'Av. When did Tisha B'Av begin? The original destruction, the original Churban, was we were entering the land and we said we can't. We can't do it. Were we right or wrong? Think about it. They had these massive giants and we were little tiny beings. The reality was that they had said we were seeing grasshoppers in the trees when they saw us, because they were huge giants. Again, to the point that when they did enter the land, Moshe was afraid of Og. Hashem said, don't be afraid of him. He was afraid of Og because he was a giant. And we were afraid, and as a result, we did not enter the land. And we got a Tisha B'Av, and we got 40 years of wandering in the desert aimlessly. 40 years later, we actually got in. When we got in, there were two tribes who made a request of Moshe Rabbeinu. And they said, we want the land on the eastern side of the Yarden. We want to be outside the land of Israel. And Moshe said to them, are you guys again like the spies, like the Meraglim? Are you making another Tisha B'Av? You don't realize what just happened? 40 years we were in the desert? And he said to them, Ha'acheichem yavou lamilchama v'atem teshvu po? Your brothers are going to go out to battle and you're going to sit here? He was angry at them. So they responded, we're not like the spies. We're not afraid. We're ready to go in. And in fact, they led the Jewish people in. So just like they were the first ones to take the land, because they took it on the other side, they said, we're here not to stay outside of Israel, but rather to expand the land of Israel. We want to expand it, that it doesn't only go on the western side of the Jordan, but even on the eastern side, what today is Jordan. And we're so convinced that we are going to lead the Jewish people in battle, in conquering their land, so that we can make it one land. And they kept their word. And what happened was, in the book of Yeshua, they entered the land, and it says there was a special what do you call it? There was a special mark when you knew that the tribe of Gad specifically, it was Reuben and Gad that were at the helm. When the tribe of Gad walked through, what did you see? It was pretty gruesome. But v'taraf zroa af kod kod. That was the bracha they were given. They would essentially cut the head and the arm of the enemy together. The taraf zroa af kod kod. Kod kod is the head, the skull, and zroa is the arm. They would chop it all off together. And when you walked around, you saw the enemy chopped off that way, you knew that was Shevet Gad in front. When they enter the land, and this is the end of the parasha, which we always read right before Tisha B'Av. So the Shabbos of Chazon, which is the Shabbos, which is the week of Tisha B'Av, will always fall out after that Shabbos. We read at the end of it as follows. Moshe says to the Jewish people, Lo tira'um, don't be afraid of them. Rashi points out that who's he talking to? Gad and Reuben. He was saying, don't be afraid of them. What you should do is just walk in and do your work. Right? And he says, there's nothing to be afraid of. I want you just to go in and to do the work. So, the way he says it is as follows. He says, ועצב אתכם בעת ההיא, I told you. השם אלוקיכם נתן לכם את הארץ הזאת ברשתה. Hashem told you, this is your land. חלוצים תעברו, you'll be pioneers. לפני אחיכם בני ישראל, כל בני חיל. You're the pioneers. Who's the pioneers? Rashi says, ועצב אתכם לבני ראובן וגד היה מדבר. And he's telling them, don't be afraid. Now, what happened by them means, obviously, if you're telling them don't be afraid, clearly they were afraid, right? Because they remembered what happened 40 years before, where Hashem had promised, right, that you should go in, and when they went and saw what's in store for them, they were afraid, they were petrified. So now he's saying to them, don't be afraid. Now, we're not talking about history, we're talking about the present. So think about this. Do you ever get afraid? Are you ever scared to take the next step in conquering the Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel that Hashem wants you to conquer? Every one of us is given a mission in life. And the mission is to get through the challenges that you're given. And you have to walk straight into them, and you have no choice, because that's what life is. And you look around and you'll see each one of us is given real, harsh challenges. And you walk right in, and then you lose them. And then you get afraid. And you're petrified. And when you're afraid, your pioneer is scared. It means, what should I do next? You ever been in a position whereby you don't know, what should I do next? How do I take the next step? How do I move forward? I don't know what to do. I don't know how to conquer this land. I don't know how to get through the next step. It's called feeling overwhelmed and feeling helpless. And you need Moshe Rabbeinu to talk to you, and to come over a pep talk, and to come over and to inspire you. And Moshe Rabbeinu has to do it in a way that you feel empowered, that you feel like, okay, I'm ready to take the next step. Let's go. So every time you feel that overwhelmedness, and you feel helpless, and you feel stuck, and you feel lost, and you have no idea how to move forward, here's the process of how you do it. The enemy will say two things. One is the head, and one is the arm. The arm and the heart. What does the enemy say? Who's the enemy? You know where the enemy is situated? It's pretty well situated. Inside your head. If the enemy is outside, it's very easy to handle. The trouble is that the enemy has a way to enter inside your head. And you'll look at yourself and you'll see there's a conversation that you have inside your head, and it drives you sugar. The conversation happens on two levels. The first one is, imagine someone's got to accomplish. He says, why does Hashem put me through this? The question of, why does Hashem make bad things happen to good people? Like, I just want to be a good person. I want to be doing chesed. I want to be learning Torah. I just want to be living a wonderful, simple lifestyle. Why, Hashem, do you put me through these harsh challenges? That's a conversation in the head. And then this conversation takes place in the arm, on the practical level. And the conversation is inside. It says, I just want to live, Hashem, just give me what I need. Like, why are you taking away my basics in my life? See, one part is, I want to live a spiritual life. I want to live a life the way you want me to, and you're not letting me. And the other one is, just on a basic level, you're taking away very basic things from me. And the enemy attacks our head and our arm. What do you want to do? Not be afraid. That's what you want to do. It's scary, because ever since the Churban Beis HaMikdash, ever since the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, we face this all the time. So the Jews faced this, that was before the Beis HaMikdash was built, but they were facing it on the way to build, and every time afterwards we read this because we're afraid. If you're not afraid, you're not human. How do you overcome it? There's only one way to do it. You have to have a pioneer who walks in front of you. That means a firm resolution that you make. And the way you do it is, without any fear and without thinking, you jump right in and you cut the head and the arm together. In other words, you break through all barriers in one fell swoop. Now, we're not asking anyone to kill. So let's understand what it means figuratively. See, there's different tools you could use for war. You could use a dagger. You could use a sword. You could use a bow and arrow. Or you could use a romach, a spear. Now, when you want to slay, it says, when you want to slay the enemy, the head and the arm together, you have to have a special weapon. It's called a romach. Romach is a spear, a lance. And it's powerful enough to be able to do both in one fell swoop. You have to obviously be good, but that's how you do it. When Pinchas went with Cosby and Zimri, and he killed them, that was with a romach, right? Romach is spelled Reish Mem Chet. The Vav is silent there. Reish Mem Chet is the numerical value of Ramach Evarim, 248, exactly. Limbs, right? You have 248 limbs. Do you know that in the Shema prayer, how many words are there? 248. Actually not, there's 245. That's why we repeat Hashem Elokechem Emet in Shul. And if you're davening on your own, you say other three words, Ani Hashem Elokechem, or some say Kil Melech Ne'eman at the beginning. But you always have to add three more words because you want to make it up to 248. When a Jew talks about the Romach in his hand, it's the prayer called the Shema prayer. The Shema is your weapon, and it's a real weapon. Why is Shema a weapon? Because it means it's the power you have to overcome this fight in the head, which says, I should be more spiritual, or the fight in the arm on the practical level, the challenges over there. The way you overcome it, the way you fight it, is with the Romach. The Romach is your Shema. See, everything that happens, everything, has a spark of godliness in it. Because we Jews know something very deep, that Hashem is everywhere and in everything. And so there's nothing that happens that is not divine. Whatever transpires in this world is all from God. In any event that happens, there's the external of what meets the eye, and there's what's really going on, the pnimiyut. What you want to do is not be led astray by the external, what meets the eye. It's to see the pnimiyut, the beauty inside everything. Why do bad things happen to good people? I have no idea. But I'll tell you this much. We know what to do when bad things happen to good people. There is no such thing as bad things happening to good people. No bad thing ever happened to a good person. It looks bad. It appears to be bad, bechitzoniyut, on the outside. But if you can access the pnimiyut, the inside, the life of it, you'll discover good in everything. What you need is your ability to be able to discern the internal. And that's why we Jews have a romach, a special spear. And what is it? The Shema prayer. During the Shema, we close our eyes, we shut the world, and we say, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Nothing exists besides Hashem. I know that this is all good. You know what happens? Some people, when something negative happens, they fall apart. And some people, when something negative happens, it's unbelievable. They become more resilient, Not that they have answers to it, but they see, they feel the power of Hashem in it. I went the other day. I have a cousin. Actually, last week I spent just after I arrived, actually, back. So I was jet lagged, so I went to sleep early. I slept 8 to 11, and in the morning I slept again from 8 to 11. And in between, I went to the hospital in Manhattan, and I was up all night with a cousin of mine. Came from Israel, came over here, and he's a young guy. He's my age, and unfortunately, he's in a very, 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 very not good situation. And the doctors were saying it's the last few hours of his life. So all the children were gathered around, and they came up another few hours. They came back up and down. They all came from Israel to there. What boggled my mind the most was his wife. His wife was over there. She's, we grew up together. We're very close, actually. And she's just like, I've never seen anything like it. She is just a ball of simcha, of positivity, in the middle. So, at some point I was saying to that we've got to say Vidui. Like, Vidui is a school of a long life, but we've got to say Vidui. She's like, I'm not denying reality. She had 10 copies, one for herself and each of her kids, to say together of the Vidui. It was right there. She made the copies. And it was ready. And I was like, so you are aware. So how do you do this? And she's like, Hashem only does good. And she doesn't leave the room, by the way. She's there the whole time. She sleeps there. When I was there that night, nurses coming in and out, she was sleeping on the side. I was awake all night. She wanted someone to be awake. And she's sleeping on the couch next to him the whole time, taking care, just caring all the time. And I was like, how do you do this? She has a power, an internal power. She's like, I don't have a choice. I'm a mother, and I have kids. And she says, my kids are having a blast here. They're in the city, they're going out, they're going on trips, people are taking them out, and whatever, they're having a good time. She says, I'm sure one afterwards will have to deal with the repercussions of all this. But I saw someone who has a power that's just, it's a godly, divine power that she has. It's like, she's suffering, like, big time. And I'm sure it's not going to be easy as we go through it. God should help, Mashiach should come. But that power, that's how you overcome any challenge in the world. You see, Yeshayahu says, Chazon Yeshayahu, the last word, the last verse of that haftarah before Shabbos, of Shabbos Chazon, he says, Tzion b'mishpat tipadeh v'shaveh b'tzdaka. That's not simply what Hashem is doing, it's what we can do. What does the word Tzion mean? We speak about Tzion as Zion. But you know what Tzion actually means? What's it Tzion? What's it Tziyun? A mark, right? When you have a grave, you put a Tziyun on the grave because you want to have a little mark where it is. When someone does well, it's called Metzuyan, outstanding. Tziyun is a little mark. There's one place in Yeshayahu where it says, Leimor leTzion amiyata. Hashem says, I have one little Tzion in this world. There's one little mark of me in this world. And you know what that is? You want to know where Hashem is in this world? Leimor leTzion amiyata. It's in the Jewish people. Every Jew has a little mark, a tiny little thing that says, hey, this is divine. I have Hashem built into me. What's the problem? That it's covered over in so much dirt. So you don't have access to your Tzion. You don't have access to who you are. You want to know how you access your Tziyun? How you access your divine powers? You go to a shir, you learn some Torah, and the Torah gives you a new perspective. That's why Onkelos says, he translates Mishpat kehilchasa kadmeisa, the original halacha. Mishpat means the study of Torah. Tzion b'mishpat tipadeh, your little tzion inside you gets released. And you get powers you never dreamed of when you study Torah and you allow yourself to internalize. So here's what happens. When you live life, you get to see destruction all around you all the time. You know how you overcome the destruction? By learning some Torah and by starting to realize that Hashem is present in every single thing that happens. And the problem is that you're seeing only the external of it. But if you can ignite the internal, you can see things in a new light. That's why Rabbi Akiva, when he saw a fox coming out of the Kodesh HaKodeshim, what was he doing? He was laughing. Why is he laughing? Because how else do you get through foxes coming out of your Holy of Holies? It's not by crying, it's by laughing. So it's like strangest thing ever. But people who have that resilience understand that when you're standing in front of the worst horror, what you do is you laugh. Because you learn some Torah and you start to realize that ein ra yored milamala, there's no bad that comes from above. Certainly doesn't look that way. It looks negative. But when you have mishpat, when you learn the Torah, you redeem your tzion. Who are the captives of Zion? You know who the captives are? If my tzion is my neshama, your neshama has garments of thought, speech, and action. Right? The way you think, the way you speak, the way you act. Who determines how you think? Who determines your thought process when something happens to you in life? Are you allowing the situation to determine how you think, speak, and act, and feel? Or are you able to access an inner power inside you? This cousin of mine, she should be well and healthy. So should her husband. But she has an incredible power. She's not allowing the situation on the outside, and it's harsh, to define her. She's defining it from within. And she's like, I choose to be happy. I don't know what that means. I don't know what it does, but it brings you redemption. Tzion, b'mishpat tipodeh, your little nekuda of tzion, your little pintele, your little neshamah, is revealed when you have a new perspective and you study some Torah and you understand it. And you feel the harshness and the mourning and the pain and suffering and so all around you. And then you see, yeah, but I'm still going to laugh. And the captive, which is the way you think, the way you speak, the way you act, when you give tzedakah, when you act with chesed and you do good things, you gain. If you study Torah, a new perspective, you release a new perspective of Hashem in this world. If you do mitzvahs and at the helm of them tzedakah, you change the way you operate. And so the prophet is giving us a vision of redemption. Here's what he's saying. He's saying, guys, there's a chazon, there's a vision of harsh and challenging, difficult circumstances which all Jews face. And we all face them because there was once a destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. All destruction nowadays originates in the Churban Beis HaMikdash. And the Baditcha was telling us that you're seeing a vision of redemption. And you say, I didn't see it. Yes, you did. You just didn't realize what you're seeing. The destruction is whatever happens in your life that is harsh and challenging. The redemption is when you flip perspective and you see things in a new light. Your tzion is released when you have a new perspective from Torah. And when you start doing mitzvahs and tzedakah, then you start thinking, speaking, and acting differently. That's why the analogy is the clothing, the garments. You know what garments are? They're built to fit you. The Beis HaMikdash is not up there. It's built to fit. If we want to bring about a redemption of the people of Israel, the first thing to do is to put the garment on yourself. He's showing you the garment. What does that mean? What's the vision? You saw the vision. The vision is that everything that happens in your life is for the good. everything. That's a vision of the third Beis HaMikdash. It's a vision that one day we'll see all the good that we don't notice right now. How do we get that vision now? We take our Romach and we say, once and for all, we're going to get rid of this Tisha B'Av. What did Tisha B'Av come about? People who saw a situation which was tough and they didn't give up. What did they see? They walked into the land of Israel. The original guys who walked in, the spies, saw a challenging situation and they said, we can't. And that made Tisha B'Av. If you can't, then you're right. You can't. And if you think you can, and you change the way you think, speak, and act, then you can. And so the end of the parsha, right before Tisha B'Av, what do we say? Moshe Rabbeinu tells them, every one of us has a little Moshe inside of us. The Moshe is a new way of looking at things. And he says, I'm telling you, you will chalutzim ta'avru, you'll pass through, you'll break through all barriers. The barriers are the head and the arm. You'll break through it. When the head tells you, I can't do it, I want to be doing something spiritual, why Hashem do you do this to me, I can't live my life this way, that's the arm. Everything you can't, you'll break it in one fell swoop. What do you need to do? Simple. Say the Shema. What does the Shema do for you? It allows you to see things in a new light. It allows you to experience a deeper perspective. That's why he says, Vet Yeshua tzivesi bo'esa hilemer. Moshe says, I told Yeshua, I said to him, you see what Hashem did to the two kings, Sichon and Og? You can conquer them too. Lo tiraum. You know who Yeshua was? That's the end of Parashat Dvarim. Yeshua, his real name was Hoshea. Why was his name changed to Yeshua? Who changed the name to Yehoshua? Moshe. When? Yeshua was one of the spies. He said it's very difficult to get in. It's so challenging. I don't know how to get through. I don't know how I'm going to conquer this land. How am I going to change my perspective and say I can do it? I don't know how to do it. Moshe went over to Yeshua and he says, when you allow the power of Hashem to penetrate your system, and you can see things in a new light, Ka Yoshiacha me'atzat meraglim. Hashem, the power of Hashem will save you. Because the Meraglim, the spies, were right. Sometimes we face impossible situations. You're right, it's impossible. You know why it's impossible? Because you believe it's impossible. If you internalize a new perspective and you say, it's always working out for me. Whatever happens is always for me. And you allow yourself to feel the harshness of the situation. You don't deny that it's harsh. But then you accept. I'm saying the Shema. Closing my eyes. Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Higher power. If you allow that to experience through you, you'll see things in a new light. And Hashem sends these messages all the time to us. We just need to access the power. There's a vision that you get. The vision is Hashem gave you a neshama. He gave you a soul. And when you can just say, okay, this is tough, this is impossible, but Hashem's going to get me through this, and I'm going to get through it. And it's good, and I know it's all for the good. And I train myself to say, it's always working out for me. Then watch how impossible situations change. It's amazing. It literally changes. I heard this great story the other day. I don't know if you heard it. It was going around. Rabbi Moshe Brisky. He's a shliach in Agoura Hills, California. So he told this really a beautiful story. The story was that there's a guy, he was the Rosh Yeshiva, a Litvish Rosh Yeshiva, of Baal Tshuva Yeshiva in Yerushalayim. And this young man comes over to him. He hadn't seen him for a few years. But the young man comes over and he says, I want to give you a wedding invitation personally. Why am I giving it to you personally? Because you were the one who influenced me and I want to invite you. So the guy became a Lubavitcher Chassid. And the guy who made him from was an Litvish guy. He said, I'm inviting you and I want you to have a bracha at my chuppah because you're the one who really changed my life. So he looks at the invitation, the Rosh Yeshiva. He looks, stares, he's like, wow. He says, I'll come on one condition. I want, at the Sheva Brachas, where all the families there, the big Sheva Brachas, I want to be there. and I want to get the mic and I want to tell a story. It's $1 million story. If you let me come, I'll come. Comes to the wedding. He comes afterwards, and he gets up at the Sheva Brachas in front of everyone, big Sheva Brachas, and he says, let me tell you a story. He's like, when I got married, I came from America, and I was in Eretz Yisrael, and I found my wife, my Kala. And my wife and I decided together that we want to live a frugal lifestyle. We don't want any of the externals of life. We want to live a life. I'm going to be in Koilel, she's going to be working, she'll be in OT or whatever, make some money, and I'll be working, and together we'll live this kind of lifestyle, no frills, very happy with it. He's like, then I went out, and I was learning in Koilel, and it was beautiful. For the first while, it was just absolutely beautiful. But afterwards, one thing led to another, and started to realize, they asked me to come help in this place, because there were a lot of young people who were going off, families, religious families, and they have kids who go off. So they asked me, I saw things, and can I help? I started talking to these kids, and I realized what a power I have. And slowly but surely, I was gravitating towards doing this as a proper job. And I became kind of like a Rosh Hashiva of all these kids. And there's no money, so I had to fundraise. And I was going around, and I wasn't learning that much myself in Koilel anymore. And my wife was getting really, really, really agitated. She loved what I was doing. She said, it's amazing what you do. But we didn't sign up for this. I signed up for a simple lifestyle of being in Koilel. I'm not ready for this lifestyle. And so it became a big issue in Shalom Bayis in my home. I didn't know what to do, because she's right. We did sign. That's the way we agreed at the beginning, but I don't know. Anyway, one day, we decided to take off for Shalom Bayis. We're going to take one full day off, just focus on each other. And whatever we decide that day, that's going to be the decision. We leave or we continue, we're going to go out. So we went out to this park in the north in Israel. We went out, and there was this beautiful river. And I'm standing, walking around with my wife, right next to the river. Top of the river, there's this waterfall, like white waters, like a little waterfall. The river goes all the way up. He's like, and we're discussing and talking and running through the issues and building our relationship. And suddenly, I'm standing facing my wife, and the river's behind her. And I'm looking at the river. And in the river, I see like what looked like a red bag, like a backpack. I'm looking, I see, that's strange. And I said to my wife, let me just go see what that is. I run close to the waters, it's a bit of a distance away. And as I get closer and closer, I see that this backpack is not a backpack. It's a little girl drowning in the waters. So I'm fully clothed. And I jumped into the river and I swam over there. And this little kid is gasping for air. And she's drowning. And I picked her up, took her out of the water. And Baruch Hashem, she was okay. Small little girl. And she was fine. And I'm shaken by the whole experience. I'm sopping wet. I was wearing a suit. Just sopping wet. I saved this girl. And my wife and I are looking around, and no one's looking for her. I thought that's pretty strange. And I realized, but maybe no one noticed that she's gone. So I started to walk with my wife and this little girl upstream. And I'm carrying this girl, and she's still crying. And we're walking upstream, and we walk past this white waters, the waterfall. And as we get past it, a few minutes of walking, we see a family, a Frum family, with a lot of kids. And they're playing. And clearly, they didn't notice. And I get close, and I'm holding this girl, and I'm wet, and she's wet, and the mother and father look at me, and they're trying to understand what's going on. They see this little kid, and suddenly, the mother starts chapping what just happened. And she looks, and she's like, oh my gosh. And she realizes this incredible miracle just occurred to her. And she picks the baby up, and she starts to hold this little baby, and she just realizes what just happened. And then the mother says to me, I got to pay you for what you just did. Like, how am I going to pay you for what you did? How do you pay for that? So she goes into her purse and she pulls out $1. She had $1 which she got from the Lubavitcher Rebbe. She pulls it out and says, I got this $1 and it's the most precious thing in the world to me. And you just gave me the most precious thing in the world and I want to give it to you. So I looked at her and I said, listen, I'll tell you the truth. The most precious thing I did was save a baby. That sounds to me pretty impressive. And the $1 doesn't mean anything because I'm not a chassid and I don't relate to it. It means something to you, you keep it. I don't need it. It's okay. She looked at me and she said, my dear friend, you just saved my daughter's life. And I am a mother and I'm telling you that I want to give you this thing because the most important thing to me. You don't tell me no. You take it. I'm like, okay, yes ma'am. So I took the $1 and he pulls out the $1 and he says, it's with me the last 20 years. I never leave without it. Only Shabbos. Other than that, I'm holding it in my wallet here for 20 years. And it's over there all the time. And he says, here's what happened that day. I came back to my wife and we were talking afterwards and we realized that Hashem had answered our question. And she realized that. Because here we were saving Jewish lives. And suddenly in the middle of our conversation, Hashem gives us a Jewish life to save. And we realized that saving a Jewish life is probably the most important thing in the world, so we decided, my wife decided, that that's it, we've got to spend time saving Jewish lives. And look at it right afterwards, what do we get? We get $1 from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, who was all about saving Jewish lives. So I decided to build it fully. I went to Yerushalayim, built this yeshiva, and one of our prize students in yeshiva was this young man standing in front of me. He became a Baal Tshuva. We brought him in to this yeshiva because this yeshiva was built. And now we have this chuppah, and it's a lot better to see the color dressed in white than dressed in red that she was then. And the mother looks at him and says, it's a lot better to see you dry than something wet. And what do you see? That sometimes these moments of the most difficult moments in our life, things which appear to be impossible, and Hashem just sends these messages. If you're just ready to pick them up and to notice the message out there. Just when it looks like things are impossible, he sends you a message and he says, there's a deeper way to look at it. Here we have the most difficult time of the year. It's a time of Tisha B'Av, it's a time of destruction. But we Jews are given a vision of the Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi, of the third Beis HaMikdash at this time. And it's telling us what you consider to be destruction is redemption. There's never a destruction. Hashem is always ever present in your life. Always. And all you got to do is say your Shema and take out your romach, your spear, and just destroy the enemy inside your head, the head and the arm all together. And not to be afraid. To realize that there's nothing to fear but fear itself. What blocked the spies from going in the first time was that. And at the end of the parasha of Dvarim, always before Tisha B'Av, what do we read? And Yeshua was given the name Kayoshiacha Matzat Meraglim. Hashem should save you. Because if you believe that you can, then you can. You know how? Hashem takes care of it for you. It's interesting how right there in the parasha there's this, there were the Plishtim. And the Jews couldn't conquer the Plishtim because Avram had promised them not to conquer them. So Hashem made a special thing. And the Plishtim were the Avim. So the Kaftorim conquered the Avim. So the Plishtim were conquered by another people. And then the Jews were able to conquer them. In other words, Hashem's telling you, I'll take care of all the things for you. The things that are impossible to do, I'll take care of it. Stop worrying. When you feel overwhelmed and you feel it's impossible and you can't conquer the land, if you just are able to ignite your neshama inside you and to laugh about it and to realize, I got your back, Hashem says. I'm always with you. If you change your perspective, reality changes. So how do we bring about Geula? How do we bring Mashiach? Simple. By feeling the pain of Golus and noticing that Hashem is still with us. And only noticing the good things that are going on. and feeling out it's always working out for me. And if you feel that, and you start seeing the good in there, and the good becomes evident all around you, and then you start seeing redemption in your own life, and by extension, in the world around us.
Thank you.